Yep. All right, let's get right into this. So bottom line is there is a software company that exists mostly through the Israeli government context that allows essentially the United States government to be able to see even when you go ahead and send things through encrypted channels, because what it does is it accesses your phone, then copies essentially what is ultimately delivered once it is decoded and in front of your eyes. So let me get into this real quick. It was going to be approved and rock and rolled by the Biden administration. It was paused at the very end of the Biden administration. Now we know that the Trump administration is picking it back up. And this means that when it comes to CDI investigators, they could potentially, with a warrant, go ahead and use this program to access your private information on your phone. Let's get into it real quick. Trump administration reinstates contract with Israeli-founded spyware maker Paragon. So here's what you need to know. The whole idea is that people expect that their phones are going to have private areas, and that if they, get into those private areas, it would be unconstitutional. It would be illegal. But of course, sometimes they have a warrant to try and figure out what were on the hidden messages. In that instance, they're going to go ahead and get access utilizing this type of spyware. Okay. Now, a lot of you guys think of spyware as a bad thing. But basically, the government can go ahead and purchase services from spyware providers that allow them to get access to your data. This includes your laptop, your cell phone, etc. All right. Company software targets data backed up to the cloud, has come under scrutiny for targeting WhatsApp users and hacking phones of critics and journalists. This is by Sharon Roble, Israeli Times. Trump administration has reactivated a $2 million contract with Israeli-funded Paragon Solutions, a maker of spyware that can be used to hack into mobile phones, including encrypted messaging applications such as WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal. The action comes after the U.S. Homeland Security's Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency in September 2024 awarded Paragon with the contract under the administration of then U.S. President Joe Biden. So just to be clear, Joe Biden's administration was really digging basically spyware that could, spy on you. And then Trump is going to officially give it the full green light, go forward with it and utilize it. Shortly after, the contract was put under a stop work order and placed under review to verify whether it was in compliance with a Biden administration executive order restricting the government's use of commercial spyware that could violate human rights, according to a report in Wired. So in other words, Biden looked at it. Biden was like, I don't know. We should take it further. Let's see what was, which is ironic too, because the main issue with spyware, and a lot of you guys don't realize this, is that if you go to some website or you get some email and you click on something, right? It involves you to take that step and to click on something. It then runs a script, and that script allows your computer to go ahead and take on some sort of program or data stream or code stream. And then what happens is once that's going on inside your computer, it's kind of like screen share or file share. You can basically access that person's computer as if it was like a Dropbox, and then you can go ahead and pull things from it. Now, a lot of you guys live in the world where you think like what you see on the computer when it comes to like these beautiful icons and beautiful laid out programs, like that's supposed to be what it is. That's not the world of computers. That's just the pictures that you think are the buttons that you click. Behind all of that is code. And behind all of that code is essentially how you're using the code, how long it took you to send a text, what you put in the text, what were the photographs, what were the videos that you sent with the text, okay? All right, so here's the deal. The stop work order was recently lifted according to an update on the U.S. government's federal procurement data system dated August 30th. Okay, so essentially Trump got it. They probably did the legal review under Biden, and then at that point went ahead and lifted it and said, yep, we're going to go ahead and do this to potentially Americans or immigrants in America, etc. Real quick, Sunny D Badoopadoop, my favorite name of all of the people who are part of the channel. Absolutely love it. Did a $5 donation. Super appreciate the hype. That's absolutely amazing. Love the little hippo with the up arms. That's awesome. But again, Sunny D Badoopadoop, very, very, very cool name. By far my favorite name out of all the names. It's got to be. All right. So according to the public procurement documents, the contract is for a fully configured proprietary solution, including license, hardware, warranty, maintenance, and training. So essentially, they're going to have Paragon train people inside the U.S. government and allow them to go ahead and utilize this crypto key to get into essentially your potential stuff. Okay. Now here's the detail. Paragon did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Paragon, backed by former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, is a rival of Israeli cyber hacking firm NSO Group, the maker of the controversial Pegasus software. At the end of last year, the Tel Aviv-based firm was reportedly sold to U.S. private equity firm AE Industrial Partners. And what usually happens, just so you guys understand, is that tech companies will come out like it's got brilliant AI code in it, or it's done something and now it's illegal to do that thing again, so you have to buy that tech company to gather what it's been able to create. Or perhaps they've created something that can access something that normally it should not be able to go ahead and access, but it gives basically an unfair advantage to those who have access to these things, which, just to be fair, at the end of the day, you might be sitting there thinking, hey, what the hell? Why do they keep having so much access to all of my stuff? Why do they keep having technology that can take all of my stuff? That's called the digital world. When you're hooked up to the internet, when you're hooked up to a satellite, basically, if there's a way to get into your phone, they're going to try and do it. Okay. Now, if you enjoy these videos where I go over new technology, things happening with Social Security, please remember, it is incredibly important to like and subscribe. Some of you guys don't hit the like button. It ends up hurting the channel. You got to hit that like button. We have to get to 1,000 likes within the first day. All right. Let's keep rolling. All right. So Paragon, backed by the former Prime Minister Ehud Barak. All right. Among its clients are the U.S. government and law enforcement agencies in Europe and Israel. Earlier this year, the spyware maker came under scrutiny by Meta's popular WhatsApp chat service for allegedly targeting scores of its users, including journalists and members of civil society. The messaging app service said it had detected an effort to hack approximately 90 users of its platform. So essentially, it's being used to shape the future political realm, the journalism realm. So, I don't know, nothing's new there. They've been doing this. They're going to try to get you to believe whatever politically they can. And many of you don't realize, but when you go online and you actually look at the news, the weird thing is, if you were to hide, basically what your computer was and then re-go online, like, you would not be getting all the types of news, all the types of things that you like, but you would be getting a more balanced news cycle. Because when you go online, if you're a Democrat, you get very left-leaning stuff. If you're a Republican, you get very right-leaning stuff. If you're an independent, then basically the algorithm just throws whatever it wants at you. But the point is this, at the end of the day, you are getting a highly tailored search result specific to what it believes you want to see. And remember, with the human brain not being very good at trust and, or rather knowing what the truth is and knowing what facts are, the human brain rather works by believing things that it expected to find. So when you expect to find something and the internet provides that to you, it's in your brain as good as a fact, as good as the truth. Okay, here we go. So in June, Paragon ended contracts with Italy following allegations that the Italian government used the company's technology to hack the phones of critics, including journalists. Paragon was founded in 2019 by former IDF Elite Intelligence Unit 8200 Commander Ehud Sniorson, CEO Aiden Nurik, CTO Igor Bogdolov, and Chief Research Officer Liad Abraham. Among its main investors were U.S.-based venture capital firm Battery Ventures and Israeli venture capital fund Red Dot. And one of the things you have to keep in mind with a lot of this stuff is that when it comes to these types of situations where it's like, they come out with some new technology that can hack something new, some new military product, some new AI product, you're always going to see that there is some capital fund investment group that jumps in to fund, because when that company ultimately makes big money or sells, they get to have their hands on the money, kind of like angel investors. Real quick shout out to Princess Diana. Thank you for the $2 donation. That's absolutely awesome. Howdy, Walter. How are you? I am super tired, but I'm rocking and rolling. Let's keep rolling through this. Paragon describes itself as a startup that provides its clients with ethically based tools to disrupt and trace intractable threats, cyber and forensic capabilities to locate and analyze digital data, cyber workforce training, and critical infrastructure analysis and threat mitigation. Okay. The offensive cyber startup is the developer of software known as Graphite, a regulated spyware tool that allows users, including government bodies, to access, collect, and extract data backed up from an individual's smartphone to the cloud. The software is also capable of extracting data from encrypted messaging applications such as WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal. The contracts that Paragon scored in recent years came at a time of U.S. government actions under the Biden administration to scrutinize the improper use of commercial spyware. The U.S. government blacklisted Israel's NSO Group in November of 2021, adding it to the list of foreign companies that engage in malicious cyber activities. So that was one of the good things, good on Biden, although to be fair, he was using other programs, other things as well. I mean, we're not going to go into that right now. He was not an angel in this thing by any stretch of the imagination. All right, so let me explain what this program really does and how the US is going to be using it in the sense of a social security realm. So, when it comes to social security realm, it's mostly going to be used by CDI units that are leaning into and obtaining warrants. And what they'll do is they'll go ahead and use the application to access your phone. And what will happen is somewhere there will be something that you want to click on. You'll click on it, and then all of a sudden it will install something on your phone. And then all of a sudden on your phone, unfortunately, going forward, they will be able to access information on it. You're not going to know how long it's been on there. You're not going to know how much they've actually taken off of it. You're just going to know that basically they show up with a report at some point called the ROI, and you're going to be kind of upset because inside that ROI is going to be a bunch of information from your cell phone that you didn't think they would have. Now, many of you are thinking this is impossible. You always get the people in the chat and the comments that are like, this is impossible. There's no way. It's total BS. Right? All that jazz. Cool. Got it. So here's the thing. It does not hack the program. It hacks your phone. Okay, so let me make this a very clear thing. The actual funnel, the pipeline of information between two computer systems, two cell phone systems, that's not what it's hacking. It is hacking the end result. When it pops up on your screen and is decoded, that's what it grabs. So essentially, instead of having to go ahead and crack the WhatsApp app, it will go ahead and just grab whatever your phone decodes and puts in front of your eyes. So that's the reality of it. Okay. Some of you are smart and savvy, and you have, basically what I like to call, they're gov phones or burner phones or whatever. So one of the things that I learned while practicing with the homeless is that dealers will go ahead and trade a bit of whatever they've got to go ahead and get a gov phone, and then that gov phone will become their burner phone, and that burner phone is what they use to go ahead and call different people to go ahead and transact business for whatever purposes. And then whenever somebody's collects that phone and tries to grab the information off it, they know it's a burner phone, they get rid of it, and they move on with their life, and that's the life of the dealer. But the bottom line is, yes, some of you are smart enough to have, essentially burner phones. Some people can't have burner phones. If you're a professional, you can't have burner phones, but some professionals have privileges like attorney-client privilege. So that's one of the benefits. But, one of the big problems is that a lot of people do not have that privilege. And unfortunately, at some point you might visit some website, open some email, click on something or whatever, and then all of a sudden they have access to your phone. So it's not good. Here's why it's bad for Social Security recipients. Okay, so the government is in massive audit mode, and they're about to utilize AI. Well, they are using AI. A lot of those little 1-hour private sessions that I do, I've been getting a lot of people with overpayments where basically 10 years ago, 15 years ago, out of nowhere, there's being claimed an overpayment against them now. Things that I would never see, a 20 or actually 25-year-old overpayment that just came out of the woodwork. I would never see that until now. Like if somebody was said to me, hey man, there's, somebody, I would be like, no, impossible. There's no way. There's no way. But that's not correct. Yes, it is that way now. Yes, overpayments are coming out of the woodwork. Yes, they're trying to grab back as much money, claw back as much money as they can. Here's the thing. If Trump really wanted to do this the right way, and again, I have to be careful with this, but if he really wanted to do this the right way, what he would do is he would go ahead and work on the investment side of Social Security benefits. He wouldn't be picking on the retired and the disabled. Obviously some of them are committing fraud. You know what I mean? I fired a client recently who, I feel like was on the path towards that. But the point I'm getting at with you, and I hope you understand this, is that at the end of the day, he needs to refocus on essentially the investment aspect of this thing, because, bleeding out a individual that, doesn't have much money, or is a person who basically is on a limited income, like a retired person or a disabled person. I get it. It sends a very clear message. It sends a very scary message, but I just don't think that is a wise message for Trump to be sending with the midterms on the horizon. Because remember, he's got a massive advantage right now. He has that massive advantage because Biden sucked. Biden was the worst president I've ever seen. You know what I mean? And granted, I'm not as old as some of you. Some of you are 90 years old. Some of you are 90 years old, okay? And so, you've seen worse. You've seen worse. But for me, Biden was the winner, winner, chicken dinner. He was the absolute worst president I've ever seen in my entire life. His vice president was the worst vice president I've ever seen in my entire life. Are there great Democratic presidential candidates that are potentials? Absolutely. Do big money individuals tend to fund them and get them elected? No. Nope. Same thing happens on the Republican side. But see, the difference is on the Republican side, there's a lot more ego. So the billionaires actually do the job. They're the ones actually doing. Whereas on the Democrat side, the billionaires just hold the marionette strings. Whereas on the Republican side, the billionaires are the actual politicians most of the time. So it's just one of those situations where I feel like at the end of the day, everything's controlled, everything's manipulated. But here's my thought: the government is going to spy on a lot of people. Some of them, it will make sense. The merit and the fruit that comes from the tree of them investigating and hacking somebody's system will be worth it, and the warrant will be paraded and applauded. Some people, they won't be able to collect data. They'll have a warrant, it won't succeed, they won't get enough information. But from the Israeli Times, it is now very clear that the Trump administration has chosen a side, and the side is getting technology that will allow basically the NSA, Department of Defense, etc., Social Security Administration will start getting into it, that will allow them to go ahead and use these tactics to gain access to things that you did not think that they would be able to get access to. So at the end of the day, I just wanted to warn you about this. I wanted you to have a full understanding that this is where we are going as a country. And I want you to understand that at the end of the day, it's a not beautiful situation, but I don't know. And let me ask you guys this. Do you guys think that at some point they'll pull back doing this? Do you feel that this is a half measure or a full measure to go ahead and try and get rid of illegal immigrants, try to go ahead and get rid of hostility, or, try to get the national defense system and national security back on track? Or do you feel like this is like forever? Because to me, this feels like a forever thing. Like forever, you can never trust your phone. That to me seems like a more reasonable assumption going forward as a result of this Paragon group making this program that the United States government pays them $2 million for every single year to utilize and get training on. So I guess what I would say to you, like, just so you understand from my perspective, the next step that I expect to happen with this situation is that the United States will work a deal with Paragon and purchase them for a massive chunk of money. I mean, billions. Could be billions, could be millions, whatever. But the point is, you'll probably see them buy it because they want to go ahead and control it and control the people who know how the coding works for it, how it can be used, etc. And I think at the end of the day, the big reason this is happening is that I think okay, so you have like the MAGA movement is essentially a movement of American pride, right? Some people see it as like a racist thing, some people see it as a sexist thing. But the reality is this: the amount of time that America has been hyper focused on trans rights, gay rights, lesbian rights, Haitian rights, immigrant rights, Muslim rights, Middle Eastern rights. The amount of time that America has been like hyper focused on that being the thing that America is trying to be is less than a decade, way less than a decade, half a decade. And so, to be fair, before all of that was families being able to have kids, get married, afford a house, afford a car. And now it's changed. Now it's not about like the war you want to wage to be successful yourself. Now it's about the war you want to wage for other groups that you may have never interacted with, or you did, and now you're going to make it your life's thing. And so, from my perspective, it's just weird that the government would have to go to this degree to try and investigate people and steal their private messages and use it to, adjudicate against them, judge against them, put them in a court and find against them. But at the same time, when I look at the situation, I think to myself, the world's getting scarier. It's not good. It's getting scary. It's getting worse. It's getting more hyped up. And I do believe we potentially could be facing in the not too distant future another, potential terror type attack, another war, another this or that. I do believe something like that is on the horizon. Remember, if we thought everything was going to work out right? And it might still. You don't know. I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. But the idea is that Trump came in. Trump's been in office. Let's see. How long has Trump been in office? How long has Trump been in office during his second term? Okay. All right. So I don't get how this thing doesn't just give me an AI response. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely. Hold on. Let me just go to ChatGPT. Just throw it in there. Hold on. Hold on. Does anybody know? Can you throw it in the chat real quick? Just throw it in the chat. Hold on. Let me go ahead and see what I can do here. Boom. So so yeah, so ChatGPT just corrected me and said he was elected in 2016, served his first term and only term, and he lost 20 like Joe Biden. There's no second term for Trump as of now. So the answer to your question is 0 time. That is weird. I just put into ChatGPT, how long has Trump been in office during his second term? And it told me Trump's not in office. Trump has not served a second term as president of the United States. That is some weird biased shit. Wow. Look at here. I'm going to copy and paste it. Hold on. Literally copying. I don't know if it's all going to fit in the chat. Look at this real quick. No, it won't fit in the chat. Hold on. Let me erase some right here. Hold on. This is literally what ChatGPT had to say. Hold on. That's literally what it had to say. That's insane. That is insane that ChatGPT would be that biased against him. That is insane. Well, yeah, but it's during his second term, you know. All right, so I'm still a little amazed that ChatGPT is that anti-Trump. Woo! That is scary. That is very horrific. That is a disgusting shame there. So basically, okay, so 8 months. So Ukraine, Putin war, still going on. Massive amounts of negotiations still have to be done. Is he doing the right stuff for our international currency? Yes. He's bullying other nations that we retake dominance and our dollar basically tries to recover in some way in being like what other countries want to use to spend. Now, here's the problem. Russia has already joined with China. But just recently, we're now seeing the head turn of India to join with China. If we lose India as like a great country that no longer is going to support the US currency like it does, you're going to be seeing a lot of problems, a lot of issues. You're going to be seeing gas problems where the gas is really expensive. You're going to see Walmart continue to go up in price massively. It's going to get really shitty really fast. And so the point that I'm getting at with this situation is we're living through hell right now, but we are living through our version as Americans. I mean, obviously what Ukrainians are living through is far worse, but we are living through a version of hell right now. And the sad thing is that we are seeing that, and think about this, the last moments in time that America could bully other nations to give us better trade deals are happening right now. You go 10 years from now, we wouldn't be able to do it. We wouldn't be able to do it. Think about this. Once AI takes over and there's AI robots out there working, building cities, building, at a window plant, at a concrete plant, at a steel beam plant, aluminum beam plant, whatever, where they're building those giant construction beams, it's over at that point. That's the crazy, crazy thing about it, is that once other countries have this AI and these other bots, the US dollar and our ability to purchase things, it's not going to be in our favor because they're going to be able to go ahead and make things at a super, super cheap amount. The only issue becomes then, how do they power their bots to go ahead and do the physical movements required repetitively using the version of lithium-ion batteries that they have? Although now they do have versions of fusion that are currently in the labs, and they do have their first version of dark energy power, which is vastly more incredible than, of course, fusion. So it's just a really interesting time because America. Okay, so here's the deal. America can't really end up on top of the future of this whole manufacturing thing if we are not able to go ahead and push and make warehouses that could mass produce all these robots and mass produce them and the AI that goes with them. I think a lot of people don't realize, and I think it's going to negatively affect the retired and the disabled, but I don't think a lot of people realize that Once these AI robots start to do more, ultimately at the end of the day, you're going to be seeing that fewer and fewer people can get jobs. We're already seeing it. I'm seeing it with other law firms right now. You'll see a law firm that normally has like one attorney and then four support staff or three support staff or eight support staff, right? And now it's one attorney with one support staff, one attorney with two support staff. And the reality is this. I mean, now that they have AI research tools, why the hell would you need a paralegal? I mean, I can search the entire database of all known human law and poof, create a little brief for you, and then you can go in and perfect it and write it and modify and do all this stuff. It's just a totally different world now. And it's incredible. But it's also going to massively hurt the disabled and the retired because think about this. Your benefits are mostly paid for by, younger generations. Well, they aren't mostly, they are entirely paid for the most part. Well, not entirely. There's a little bit of the reserve. Well, but even then, the reserve, with what's been in there going back 15, 20, you're still talking about younger people working. So I guess what you would say, even considering the special interest trust funds, the bonds and all that jazz, basically the younger people are paying for all the retired and the disabled right now. Okay. What happens when 25% of the younger people population can no longer get a job? Well, that means that 25% of, the benefits that we're going to be paid are no longer going to be paid. Now, you might be saying there's no way to let this happen. Well, honey bun, they've already let the trust funds fail. Not only are they going to let it happen, it is de facto on the charts that it will happen. The only problem is the charts that they provide are based off of a 1.9% fertility rate instead of a 1.6% fertility rate. Let's go to ChatGPT, ChatGPT just lied to me a little bit. So, all right, what is the fertility rate? Hold on, fertility. What's fertility rate in the United States? Okay, that's how many kids are born per woman. Let's see what it comes up with. So, okay. So the replacement level of essentially the United States to survive, because it's basically, it's not making enough kids for it to actually survive. The United States is dying right now when it comes to new people being born, would obviously be 2.1. So you need 2.1 children born per woman for the United States to go ahead and flourish. Well, not flourish, but stagnate just above it not growing, right? It's currently at 1.6. Mathematically, it is calculated by the Social Security Administration at 1.9. That means the core math, the most important figure for defining the longevity of the existence of the Social Security programs, the number one mathematical number that matters is wrong. And it's wrong. Instead of being 1.6, they calculated 1.9. So the point that I'm getting at with this whole thing is that at the end of the day, unfortunately, this is a situation where, to be fair, like Social Security will die. It will fail. It's just not going to fail in like the way everybody thinks, where they're just going to cut off the benefits. They're just going to keep shrinking them and shrinking them and shrinking them. At some point, they're going to have to go ahead and take $2 trillion to just magically create it and then put that into essentially investments in the United States that make sense. I'm not talking about green energy. I am definitely not talking about green energy. Be nice if that worked out, but it's not going to. And then basically from there, those investments paid a greater amount and tried to fix the problem. But to be fair with you, if we had some accountants on here, we might find out that it's too late. Like if you had a lineup of actuaries as to what's going to happen in Social Security, they would probably find that we're too late, too far down the road to be able to pay for all these people with their benefits. So the scary thing about it, just to be clear, like with the transition of what's going to happen, so I was talking with this one person and he said, well, they have to fix it. They have to fix it. They are required to fix Social Security benefits. And I said to him, I said, why? And he said, because there will be massive riots and massive angry old people and massive angry disabled people. And I thought about that for a moment and I was quiet. And he said, did you hear what I said? I said, yeah, I heard what you said. I did. But again, just to be fair, you have a massive impoverished class of people known as disabled, massive impoverished class of people known as retired. If you cut their money back, they can't even travel. They can't go someplace to scream and say, hey, what the hell? You see a lot of these like protesters where, people walk up to them, they're like, what job do you have? And they're like, oh, I don't work. Well, like, that's because their job, sorry, I have an itch on my leg. That's because their job is doing that. If you see other YouTube channels, look up essentially the people who are protesting. They literally have mapped out each protester and how they've been protesting and, move from this state to 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 go ahead and protest things. They just keep popping up. The same people over and over. And I guess the disgusting thing for me about it is that it devalues what potentially could be a great idea, great future, because they're using fake frauds to basically go out there and push an agenda. But what upsets me about it is, okay, think of it this way. If you were running the country and you knew that, like, there was a lot of Social Security recipients, because, at some point, if you're lucky and you live long enough, you end up on Social Security no matter what, whether it's SSI or retirement, right? For the most part, you're going to end up on it. Imagine having to face people, like look them straight in the eye, and for decades, since the 1980s, provide no solution to what they knew was going to fail. Like, just think about that for a moment. Think about how bad it must be to be able to look into the faces of Americans that rely on this money on a monthly basis, to look them in the eye and still allow it to fail. That's kind of what I'm getting at, because there's no politician other than let's tax the rich or make everybody retire older that is basically coming forward with an idea. The only idea that I've heard that even makes sense is have the Treasury create $1 trillion, $2 trillion, invest it the way investments are supposed to be made, and then from there reap the benefit of whatever the return on investment is from it. Like, take it away from the traditional government investments and invest it the way that it actually makes money. Keep the regular trust fund that we have, and then create a new trust fund called the not a piece of piley burning shit trust fund, or the trust fund that invests like everybody else, or the trust fund that's not relying on the government to F it all up, or the trust fund that's run by essentially really smart, intelligent, futuristic investors that know what's coming up. That trust fund. And people always say, well, I don't want to give my money to private, people when it comes to investments. I mean, shit, I could lose everything. Well, you did. You let the government take over. They can't back it. It's too big of an amount. They don't have the trillions to back it. So when they're like, the government will always pay you, that they won't, because they don't have the money to continue the payments. That's why the trust funds are running out, because they don't have the money to put it back, to fix it, because their investments were shit. So you can't trust the government to do this function. You can't be like, we'll just throw some safeguards up and then these, treasury bonds will still work. They won't. They are designed improperly from the beginning to allow this to actually work out. So the point I'm getting at is, the only thing that's going to really, that I see work with this situation, is if the Treasury magically creates some coin and they attribute $2 trillion to that coin. And then they take that $2 trillion and invest it, in Pelosi-esque manner-ish ways, right? And she's not even the best investor that's out there. There's some of these investors have made way more than her. But the point is, invest it into companies that are likely to achieve greatness. Invest it into companies that have already achieved greatness and they're just running it, right? Then, of course, you make tons of money. We would have absolutely zero problem with affording disabled and retired people. Absolutely zero problem. But we can't get there unless we create another trust fund. Because remember, you can never get rid of the old trust fund, because you have a ton of people who believe the government is going to be smart about something. I can't fix those people. They're just broken. Then on the other side of the coin, you have the people that are like, well, the way investments work is by doing what the other people do that are successful. They do that, And it's just frustrating for me because I watched this whole thing come down and it's like, you got Democrats screaming on one side, you can't trust private investment types. Fine, have the government control it, but then get actual real private investors in there to make it work, right? But again, they say you can only trust the government. The government failed, it is failing horribly, and the system they set up to begin with has basically been used to fund the government. They take your benefits, they take your FICA taxes, they put them into these bonds, and then they spend them on what they want. Is what it is. Then over here, you're telling them, okay, take this money, invest it, moderate risk, make some money. That's the only way we can get out of this problem to fix Social Security benefits. The horrible thing, the nuclear problem that's coming up. When I talk about fertility problems, that's like a one of these gigs. Like you lose out over time, and then it collapses. Lack of fertility, lack of men marrying women, lack of women having kids from men, lack of men taking care of the kids. And again, I'm not trying to make a political statement with that. I think that two men, can raise a kid, two women could raise a kid. Absolutely, they can't create children. But there's a lot of kids that need love out there. So I'm absolutely for them, basically getting kids to be raised. However, the kicker is we need more kids. We need people making kids and people supporting kids. However, all those boomers out there, those student loans, yeah, they can't make new kids to pay for your retirement benefits. Like the number one thing that's going to like bring it down is not enough kids being born because they got student loans. So you either get rid of student loans, you get more kids, or you watch it burn down. That's basically it. I'm not even going to argue with boomers about it anymore. There's no point. There's too much emotion there. They got too much of that whole they got too much of that like financial analyst, in the background going, these damn kids with their damn education. Yeah, I got like $300,000 still left worth of student loans. Like, I don't think y'all understand. It didn't cost, $100,000 to become a lawyer. It costs significantly more than that. And I have, master's, Juris Doctorate, etc. So, it's just one of those gigs, it's just one of those gigs. You gotta, I smile on the inside now. I used to get angry. I used to get really angry. I used to fight with some of the Masons in my Masonry chapters and stuff, my Scottish Rite, my what you call it, the Fez, we hang out there and stuff. Yeah, I used to fight with them about it. And now I've realized like there's no fixing it. You can't convince older people that they have to pay off younger people's student loans so that younger people can innovate a future and make more kids. You can't convince them that. You just can't. You can't peel through that mindset, and that's the thing too. And that's one of the biases that I've always had against me is that people do not want to learn about Social Security benefits from somebody under 60. They don't. They want to watch somebody that's old, a bunch of their hair is falling out, they got, all kinds of sunspots, they look a little miserable, they're a little bit bitter, a little dour, let me tell you about the way it was when I get it. That's fine. But let me tell you about the future. Okay. The problem is the devaluation of the dollar. That's what happens when other nations stop buying our reserve currency to use it to buy other things from other nations. That's the nuke. The slow, terrible fog of war where you just keep losing, that's the fertility issue. That's the problem where not enough kids are being born to replace the kids that are needed to work and pay FICA taxes. Right? That's the next issue. And then, to be fair, I mean, we keep getting these crazy politicians. Like, is it not weird to you that like one of the number one thing? All right, so I get it. Number one on our list, right? National security. Keep us safe from crazy shit. I agree. That's number one. Number two, economy. Make sure our economy is booming. The dollar's doing well. Cool. I agree. Right? I agree. Number three, let's get everybody healthy. How about health insurance for everybody in some way? How about a social net for health insurance? Because it's broken. It's super broken at this point. There's no fixing it. We need a social net and then to inch our way towards getting rid of a social net. Okay? Because remember, social nets are only needed when capitalism fails. That's the reality. And then I think the next one would be Social Security, right? right? We focus everybody's healthy. We want to make sure everybody's good. Everybody's got coverage. They can get medical treatment, right? Although it seems like Big Pharma plays that one. Then I think Social Security. If we just focus our brains on what's important, it's not who we're going to let into certain bathrooms. It's not who we're going to let onto certain sports teams. It's not, parades about this, parades about that. It's national security. Are we protected? How's our economy doing? Is everybody healthy? Right? Because we've got to be able to afford that health care. So we need safety and we need money to make that happen. And then is everybody healthy? And then Social Security, the bigger picture. What happens when something happens? I don't know. To me, it would be easy. It would be easy to go ahead and, to go ahead and achieve a better America. But it's just weird because like a lot of people aren't focused on that. People are like either hating a rainbow street or loving a rainbow street. It's just weird to me. Like, who gives a shit? You got a rainbow on your street, who cares? Yes, it's politically wrong. It shouldn't be there. It's using government property for political. But yes, they're right. But still, who gives a shit? It's a rainbow. You know what I mean? So I guess what I'm getting at here is like, and then this whole video, Trump pays for company that can hack your cell phones. I'm not saying Trump's bad because, he's going to use this to catch bad people too. But this is going to sneak into Social Security recipients as well. And I'm not saying all of you. But every time I say, now I've noticed this, every time where I feel like I'm comfortable with how good they are at investigating people, with what techniques they are using to investigate people, with the level of crimes that they're making a big deal over, every time I get comfortable, I get one of those 2-hour consult or 1-hour consultations, right? People hire me for a private consultation and they send me the paperwork and they explain to me the situation. And I'm like, my mind is blown. To me, the SSA shouldn't give a bleep about it. But yet, there it is, 15-year-old overpayment. And I'm just sitting there just like, what? How would they eat? And that's it. It's AI. AI can go through it all, figure it out. They can click a button. They have a supercomputer. It goes through all of it. Imagine now, right? If they have a blanket issue with disability, I'm not saying they're doing this, but imagine now if they had a blanket issue with disability payments and they wanted to go ahead and do, let's say, a maximized 8-step sequential process, which is where they review people under a CDR. Imagine, and I'm not saying this is real, that they would go ahead and do a massive search for potential activity that would be beyond what they claim they could do in their medical records. I would say probably 99% of you have said something on your phone that is not consistent with what you put down on the SSA forms. And that's because on those SSA forms, you know what I mean? You're kind of putting down when you're really bad, you were still working, you got out of work, you haven't kind of recovered a little bit. You're going through that. And so that's something that really scares me. And I don't like it. And it scared me. It really scares me. So, all right. Anyways, please remember, if you like to talk about this stuff, to think about the future. And I know it's scary, but at the same time, you're part of the solution. The people that are like, nothing bad's going to ever happen, they change. Those people change. God, remember when like people were like, there's never going to be a problem with the trust fund. Then they got past those, right? Because there was. Then we got the people, the SSA doesn't have people that can actually follow you around, right? Then we got past those because obviously it was a very popular program because the investigations saved more money than it cost for the entire investigation program. So it was a very popular program, right? The CDI units, CDI hubs, all that stuff. So I guess what I'm getting at with this is like, we keep unraveling the depth at which the Social Security Administration is willing to examine you, examine the system. God, every day now, oh my goodness, every day now, I watch a new policy update, a new emergency message update, a new this update, a new that update, an OIG press release with a hot sheet about somebody who was frauding the Social Security Administration. every day now, it's like somewhere in the system, they just throw up a whole bunch of new stuff. It never used to be like that. It never used to be moving like that. It is going way too fast. My buddy was like, yeah, I guess the laws haven't really changed in your field. My field is changing every day. Every day. It's an administrative field, and they're trying to figure out how to keep the ship from sinking. Every day it's changing. Anyways, Bonnie Martinez, job security, Walter. It is crazy these days. That's not job security. Think about this. They got new, CRISPR systems using AI that can fix cancer. They've got new types of funguses that can basically go hunt down different types of bad cells that are replicating improperly. Man, let me tell you something. They're not that far off from being able to create a fungus that can go into your body and teach the cells in your body with the DNA that you have to rebuild something that's not working properly. Don't have eyesight in one eye? Cool. They got a DNA sequence for that. Come over here, pay here. You want to have your bottom 3 fingers, working again? Cool. Go get this shot. You'll have to pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, whatever. But and that's kind of what's happening with stem cells. You don't know how many claimants I have that have a knee problem or a back problem. They go straight to Mexico, where they're not so worried about, what religion's going to tell them about how stem cells should be used. They go straight to Mexico, stem cell shots right into their back, right into their knee. And then for years after that, they're good to go. We're on the precipice, looking at a much massively larger, massively longer mountain of humans living for the longest they've ever lived. And what do you do then? If the population increases by 10 years across the board on average by death rate, Social Security benefits fail. It was a system designed to not have to pay out retirement benefits. I'm not making that up. Most people back in the day were passing away before they even got to ring the bell and get their benefits. In the very beginning, that's how it worked. Now, everybody's, for the most part, trying to ring the bell to hit 90. All right. With that said, I will catch you at the next video. The next video is about a video where people really picked on me about one thing, and they were, how dare you? And how could you say this? And da-da-da-da-da-da. And I thought about it. I thought about how they were beating me up on there. And I realized that they were completely and utterly missing one very important fact about what I was explaining. We're going to do that in the next video. But with that said, please remember to hit that like button. So many of you don't hit it. Hit the like button. Give it a little wiggle, right? Also, please remember one of the things I love. If you go to the law firm webpage on Google, Disability Resolution Law Firm, Disability Resolution Florida, throw some stars up there if you want. Totally up to you, but I love waking up to those. I go live on Mondays and Thursdays. I will go live tonight to answer questions for free about Social Security disability law. Obviously, if you need a disability attorney, give me a call. But bottom line is this. I never advertise, but bottom line is, most viewed, most subscribed to, most clicked on disability attorney in America. Also, please remember, if you have a weird problem, a weird situation, overpayment, they're investigating you, you're going through a CDR, you have, a situation where you're trying to figure out what programs you're going to try and tap into before you retire, before you quit your job, whatever. I do those 30-minute and 1-hour consultations. Now, with that said, though, the more information I feed people about how the systems work when they give me the questions, I've had almost, I would say 80% of my 30-minute ones, they're real quick to say, hey, can I just pay you the rest for a full hour? They're real quick with that. The problem is we're starting to schedule the half an hours after the half an hour, so that we're going to have to fiddle with. I will catch you at the next video in about 10 minutes. Attorney Walter Hnot, and I think that next video is going to be very, very spicy. But I think also it gives me a chance to be on the defense and then the offense about something a lot of people were attacking me about. And I think it's my chance, it's my right to defend. So I will catch you at the next video. Attorney Walter Hnot, you have a wonderful, wonderful night, and we will rock and roll from there. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.